The metallic tang of anticipation, almost a taste, was what I remember first. One moment, I was sifting through what felt like a new vein of gold, the culmination of years, a future shimmering just out of reach. The next, it was just dust. That email, timestamped 2:17 a.m. from their legal department, confirmed it. Referencing our standard non-compete clause, it read, and an unfortunate oversight on your part. That was all it took to strip everything bare. It felt like a sudden, violent vacuum, pulling the air from my lungs and leaving me adrift in a silent, suffocating haze. The initial shock quickly gave way to a cold, hard truth. My asset, my discovery, had been quietly, ruthlessly claimed. But even as the dust settled around me, a strange, stark clarity began to form in the quiet. The game had changed, and I needed to understand every single rule I was now forced to play by. The chaos that followed the news wasn't loud, but it hummed inside me like a live wire. A deafening white noise. For days, the world felt like a frenzied, untamed frontier. Every decision a gamble, every person a potential bandit. I moved in a daze, the immediate shock of betrayal, a heavy, physical weight. Yet, in that oppression, a strange stillness settled, much like the profound silence after a violent desert storm. It wasn't resignation, it was unexpected clarity. My anger, a hot, reactive flash at first, cooled, hardening into something far more useful: resolve. The urgent question wasn't times why times they had done it, but times how asterisk. How had they stripped away years of my work and assets with such surgical precision? There was a specific mechanism, a loophole, an overlooked clause. I was sure of it. This wasn't random theft, it was orchestrated. My mind, no longer clouded by static emotion, started sifting details, searching for the precise legal thread they'd pulled. I needed to understand every step, every document, every signature. The quiet had arrived, and with it, the unwavering focus required to unravel it all. I cannot fulfill this request without the specified word allocation, integer. The prompt explicitly states that this is one of the 3 required inputs, and it is missing. Please provide the exact word count for the section. The old map was worthless, stained by others' chaotic ambitions. I'd lived too long in their Wild West, my intellectual property treated as communal grazing land. That era was over. My imperative: reclaim what was mine, shifting from powerlessness to control. I would methodically map every detail, every email, concept, draft a crucial waypoint. I outlined precise legal pathways, identifying leverage points. Have you ever had to build a new map when your old one was burned? My territory's borders would now be drawn by my hand. While they celebrated the quiet they believed they had imposed, I was busy redefining it, turning silence into my sharpest tool. My days became a meticulous, almost surgical process of reconstruction, each step a deliberate countermove. Each screenshot of a provisional patent filing, precisely dated and digitally archived, marked months of late-night development, a quiet burn, knowing it would be a minimum of 6 to 12 months before those applications even began their journey through examination. Certified mail receipts, their green cards returning like small, victorious flags, confirmed the precise delivery of legal notices, patiently challenging the validity of old agreements and asserting new, unbreachable boundaries. These seemingly minor actions were the unseen gears turning, slowly grinding away at the illusion of their unchallenged control, already beginning to ripple through their well-ordered chaos. The true shift, however, didn't come from aggressive confrontation, but from patient excavation and observation. Deep within an obscure online repository, I unearthed a publicly available geological survey from the 1972nd. It meticulously documented unexploited mineral rights on a seemingly unremarkable parcel of land, a property they had deemed worthless and allowed to lapse into tax default. My immediate retainer of $18,000 secured the initial legal framework and due diligence, followed by a $115,000 investment to acquire the deed for that very parcel, now filed under a newly formed LLC. The paperwork, quietly processed by the county recorder, took weeks to finalize, but it was worth every moment of the wait. They might have been content with what they saw on the surface, but I was digging for the gold beneath. Each deed acquired, each application filed, was a silent, unyielding declaration of intent. The foundation was laid. The real work was about to surface, piece by careful piece. The email arrived Tuesday morning, a perfectly neutral legal notice confirming the freeze on their most liquid assets. They had assumed my silence meant surrender, a quiet acceptance of their narrative. Their arrogance, I realized, was simply a lack of imagination, a failure to grasp that inaction could be its own powerful prelude. Now, as the initial shock rippled through their carefully constructed facade, the silence wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs, punctuated only by frantic phone calls. The dust, they were discovering, was indeed settling. But it wasn't the soft, familiar blanket they'd anticipated. Instead, it was sharp, abrasive, revealing outlines they never expected, undeniably clear. The quiet calm I had cultivated didn't last long. As soon as the court filings landed, the storm began. Their initial response was a flurry of panicked emails and aggressive cease and desist letters, frantic attempts to intimidate me into backing down. They scrambled for any legal footing, hiring a formidable and expensive defense team. I could almost hear the frantic phone calls, the late-night strategy sessions, their voices rising as they tried to explain away the unambiguous clauses of the very agreement they had drafted. But where they brought noise and bluster, I maintained a deliberate silence, allowing my legal team to meticulously prepare. The discovery phase was a brutal mirror reflecting their past actions. Every financial transaction, every email, every meeting minute they had once dismissed as irrelevant now became a piece of irrefutable evidence. That infamous exemption clause, the one they had so smugly inserted in Section 2.1b of the initial partnership agreement, designed to allow for unilateral asset transfers under specific, seemingly impossible conditions, it was now their undoing. My counterfilings didn't dispute the clause. They embraced it, demonstrating through bank statements and notarized documents how times their own actions times had, unwittingly, fulfilled the very conditions that allowed me times to legally reclaim what was mine, effectively turning their cleverness into a self-inflicted legal trap. The cost for them was mounting, not just in reputation, but in actual legal fees, tens of thousands already, with no end in sight. My calm approach, anchored in concrete facts, allowed the legal system to steadily turn the screws, one precise, financially draining turn after another. This was no longer just about a principle or an oversight. It was about undeniable paper trails and palpable, inescapable consequences. The final meeting wasn't a battle, but a declaration, a quiet, unyielding presentation of facts and finished business. The signed, stamped document, my attorney's firm seal prominent on its final page, lay between us, a tangible symbol of boundaries drawn and ownership solidified. There was no negotiation, only information delivery, the deed to the property, the legal transfer of assets, all executed with precision. My past definition of success, a shared venture, a compromise, had been a quiet compromise of my own potential. Yet, as their protests faded into a low hum, the new definition emerged, robust and fiercely independent. Success was building my own empire, brick by solitary brick. The dust of their discontent swirled, but beyond it, my horizon was remarkably clear, stretching wide and unburdened by their weight. This wasn't merely about taking back what was mine. It was about claiming what I would build. My independent venture, once a mere concept whispered to myself, was now a fully funded blueprint, ready for groundbreaking. They had wanted a share of what they thought was my gold, but they failed to see that I had quietly, painstakingly built a mine. What mine are you building, brick by quiet brick, in the face of what others believe you owe them?